welcome into another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast, everybody. Our first one of the new year. I hope you all had a great and wonderful holiday weekend as well, too. We're going to jump right into it really quickly today. We're going right into the tip-off. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelsey. And Kelsey, there's really only one thing to talk about right this moment as well, too, and that's the story that is, for lack of better words, absolutely shocked the sports world. It was Damar Hamlin on Monday Night Football collapsing in the middle of the game. It's not fully diagnosed what has happened yet too, but we could both say the only words that came to mind during that were, what the F? Oh my goodness, is he okay?
Yeah, look, I've seen a lot of injuries in football, and I've never seen something quiet like that. That was, I don't normally get emotional watching sports, but I can honestly say watching that moment, yeah, it got me. And it not only got me, it got me good. It was, yeah, it was wild to just to watch, to see the reactions of the players and to see the response. First of all, shout out to the response from the NFL team, the medical team. That was, in a situation where you always prepare for the worst. You never see it though. They were ready for it, and they talk about their 60-minute meeting that they have before the game is one of those situations that, because of that, obviously they know their chain of command when a situation like that arises, so they were able to act quickly. So thankful for that. But yeah, as far as everything goes, such a wild situation in what was panned out to be one of the games of the year, and unfortunately, we're sitting here talking about a man fighting for his life, and at the end of the day, he actually said it in an interview earlier this season. He's like, there's things in life that are bigger than the game, and this is one of those things. The game doesn't matter, and we talked about this during when we were watching the game and everything, and just the situation that arises with it, and it was it's absolutely wild to think that something like this could happen to a healthy 24-year-old, somebody who is pretty innocuous play, just made a tackle, and looking at some of the updates, you have Alan Sills, the chief medical advisor for the NFL, saying that obviously you've heard commodio cordis being the thrown around diagnosis, but it might be a diagnosis of exclusion because they might not know. And the fact is, the thing that they're throwing around is something so astronomically unlikely that it's something that most of them only read about in books. It takes the exact right amount of force in the exact right amount of place at the exact right amount of time in a heartbeat cycle to cause it. And it was wild. It was wild. That's my take from it. Praying for his family. Obviously, if you guys haven't been following along, there's obviously the fundraiser that he created for the Chasing M's Foundation Community Toy Drive a couple years back. That Bears fans in their infinite wisdom, and I don't know how they keep doing it, but they keep finding these GoFundMe pages, and man, I don't think I've seen a more supportive fan base other than them in the Bengals right now. This is absolutely fun, fantastic to watch out of a dire situation. Nearly $6 million raised for this foundation. That's not including the stuff going, to his jersey sales or anything like that as well. So, it's a sad situation, and there are some positives coming from it. You obviously see the support being thrown in the community, but yeah, this is just something you're sitting here and just hoping for the well-being of just a young man, just trying to live his life, trying to play the game for fun, the kid's game. To make a living. And this brings in that light of, I'd, run myself through a wall for you. Well, we've all seen that result now, and now it made everybody take a step to just kind of pause and be thankful for what we have right now,
I will say what's interesting about that toy drive too that you mentioned is, or someone in either the team, an owner, a player from all 32 teams was somehow represented in that list as well, too, among many, many others. You can find Jim Irsay is the leader right now with over 25,000, I believe it is as well. You see Tom Brady's on there, Andy Dalton. The list goes on and on. We need another hour of a show to go through people on there. On Twitter, every single team changed their profile picture to us. Pray for Damar Hamlin with his number as well, too. I think one thing you mentioned, too, shocking. I think one reason they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. The fact that we all saw that live, like you hear about cardiac arrest, you hear about people in situations like that, but you don't, until you see it, especially like that to a 24-year-old, like I was 24 when I graduated college, and that feels like 4 lifetimes ago. So that is how young of a man this is as well too. And to actually see it with your own eyes multiple times as well too, see it just right in front of you, I think that really was the jarring effect it had on everybody. And in a situation where the least likely place you expect something like that as well too, the least likely time is always a very shocking and jarring for everyone to see that. I do want to circle back to that 60-minute meeting you mentioned as well too. And you mentioned Dr. Silas talked about that meeting, and nobody ever sees that. It goes on underneath the stands. So nobody actually sees that thing, but it's probably the most important meeting. Like that all of the medical personnel, everyone related to that meets, and they basically go over, okay, we won't have to do this, but we got to go over it just in case. And well, this is the one time they actually had to do it. And very thankful they did, because in those situations when your heart stops and you have to get CPR, it's not just your lungs necessarily, but your brain and your organs are the things that really suffer from that. And the fact they were able to do that so quickly is what for right now hasn't been a trending upward positions. They were able to save a lot of those organs as well too by acting so quickly. The latest update we have for him as well too is as oxygen levels have improved, that he's basically right on track for what they wanted to see. It's still a long ways to go, obviously, still listed as critical condition, but the trend is pointing up, and that is very good and heartwarming to hear as well too, just a couple of days later, and very encouraging signs moving forward as well. And kind of want to circle this one more thing back to that we kind of talked about as well too, and kind of get your thoughts on this as well. When we look at kind of how the entire community rallied around him as well too, like we talked about all the player donations, every team changed their Twitter handle. Everywhere's going to have something honoring him this week as well too. We got Sauce Gardner trying to quickly grab a jersey in time to wear for this weekend, because Fanatics is probably running out of delivery drivers right now with how many people have ordering him. Have you ever seen anything quite like this, where it seemed like the entire sports and world managed to unite around one single cause?
No, I mean, this is you got to say this is kind of unheard of in a lot of ways. I mean, I think maybe if you look back a few years ago to the South American soccer team who passed away in the tragic plane accident, and a situation like that where everybody rallied around that team and that city, maybe that might be a situation there. But honestly, to just I don't know if we've seen it for in the U.S. with the U.S. sport. I think I should say I don't think we've seen it that kind of this way, because there's never been really an athlete that I think we've ever seen on this in this situation on live TV. Like, it's happened before in pros. Like something has happened and a player has collapsed in pro sports before. It's not Christian Eriksen in the Euros. I think back to and obviously how they rallied around Christian Eriksen, and that's the worldwide situation. But even to that degree, I don't know if it was the same. It doesn't feel like it was the same. It is something that maybe it's just because the Bills fans have always done this. They, like, if somebody gets hurt, somebody gets something like that, and they find that person's foundation, GoFundMe, something like that. Which, by the way, I'll say this before I continue any further. If you guys are interested in the fundraiser, we do have the link down in the comments, so you can click on that, and if you feel like donating, go ahead and do that. But they do. Like, the Bills fans have always found those and have added extra. That has added an extra piece to this, because it's not just Bills fans donating, and it's not just Bengals fan. As you mentioned, it's somebody from all 32 teams. I mean, you have Adam Schefter, you have Shannon Sharp, you have the La Liga, which is the Spanish Soccer Federation. You have Michael Phelps. Chris Jericho donated 2 times, because one didn't accept a $10,000 donation for him the first time, so he did 2 $5,000 donations. You have the Commanders, New Era themselves came out and gave money. Like, you have companies in there giving money and donating to them, and so it's fantasy football leagues. We talk about the impact, obviously, on this young man's life. Well, there's fantasy football owners out there that are like, they don't care about what happens in their fantasy football leagues. There's fantasy football leagues that are donating the entire purse for their league into that foundation as well. I mean, you look at that top donations list, and there's fantasy football after fantasy football league, and throwing in thousands of dollars. And so I don't know if I've ever seen anything to this level, because it is really people just, maybe it's because it's a new year. Maybe it's because of everything we went through after the lockdown. I don't know what it is, what is causing this type of support, but it is through all the bad, it is kind of a heartwarming situation to see the support being given off to Damar Hamlin and his family. And yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen it this just to this level. This has been through all the bad, and I have to keep emphasizing that. I think through all the bad of this, through all the negatives of this, there is that nice community feel that people are coming together on this one. And I mean, it wasn't even a question. Like, you know, like we were sitting here watching the game, and it wasn't even a question in the coaches. It wasn't a question in the players. It wasn't a question in anybody in to do with that game that game was going to be canceled. You know, the NFL obviously doing their due diligence, trying to get things rescheduled for later on. That's why it took so long. But let's be honest, nobody. And now that's the first time I think I can honestly say the NFL has ever put its players first. It felt like in a situation like this, and you know, obviously you're talking more the support of off the field, but I do want to bring this to that NFL situation too, because this does really feel like the first time I've seen the NFL in a situation like this actually put aside the dollar and be like, these players aren't fit to go out there. Let's cancel this. And, you know, obviously coaches and players and captains have a lot to do with that. But at the same time, there was no issue from the NFL. There was no stink being raised by the NFL to try to play that game. They were just, yeah, absolutely. You're not playing tomorrow. We have no plans to reschedule this unless we absolutely have to. Like, I think that's applaudable in a lot of ways as well. So, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite just like this. Because even I talked about Christian Eriksen, that game went on. Those guys went back out there and played afterwards. You know, so I don't know.
I will add to that as well too. I know a lot of people made a big thing about like that 5 minutes getting warmed up and thing like that. I think that was just kind of reading the protocols for what would like for an elongated stoppage of play, and I think that was just a little communication. I think even Zach Taylor mentioned in his press conference today. Once him and Sean McDermott spoke, they're like, "This is not going to happen." Like he even gave Sean McDermott credit for leading the way. Like this, we can't do this. Like this unprecedented situation. It wasn't like you mentioned. They didn't force them to play. It wasn't a big rabbit hole. I think it was just a lot of confusion as well. Which to that, I do want to. There's a lot of bad in this, as you mentioned as well. Too. In fact, the story itself is bad. We're not going to focus on the bad because there's a lie. If you want to go find bad, go look on Twitter. There's plenty of it you can find. We're going to focus on the good and the positive, and the heartwarmingness of this. The one team I want to give credit to is, as much as we like to rag on them, the ESPN broadcast team did a fantastic job throughout this entire thing as well too. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, they are mandatorily the butt of all jokes when it comes to sport broadcasting. And sometimes Joe Buck deserves it because sometimes he opens his mouth and inserts his foot. But what they did in this unprecedented, just insane time, honestly, where you don't know what's going on, is a tragic situation. For all anybody knew, we had just witnessed somebody pass away on the field, and it was awfully close to that, as we're learning now too. We had the beneficiary of talking about it 48 hours later. So we've had a chance to see updates and like gather. They're doing this live in real time while you went from like the highest of highs from that game to, oh my God, what did we just witness? What is going on? And getting things. That is chaos that was going on there at that point too. The way they're trying to bounce back, and everybody with ESPN handled that very, very well. Troy Aikman, Joe Buck, Lisa Salters, the people in the truck, like everybody running it, they couldn't have handled that any better, I thought as well too, which obviously a very, very small piece of the entire story. Is just something, just wanted to point that out. And I want to circle back to when you talked about those donations. One of my favorite stories that came out of that one is a few years ago, Bills Mafia, as you mentioned, they find these random GoFundMes and then they get rolling on it. When Andy Dalton helped get them to the playoffs, they actually found his foundation and donated to it. And lo and behold, who was one of the first donations for this one as well too? Andy Dalton, with one of the larger initial donations as well too. So a very full circle and heartwarming thing of the unity that is coming behind this as well. And when Damar Hamlin does recover, I'm saying when he recovers and when he's back up, if he's not in tears, I'll be in tears for him because of how much unity and how much backing he has right now from just across the world as well too. Like the amount of support he's going to have when he bounces back as well too. It's absolutely incredible. In a very tragic situation, there is a lot of good to come out of the back end of it as well too. And it is great to see those people actually rally and care, and how, as we mentioned, we haven't really seen anything like this in the U.S. You mentioned in soccer with Eriksen, it was similar situation, but at the same time, very, very different as well too. Like it's comparing apples to strawberries at that point, and it's really incredible to see how everyone is rallied behind. And honestly, I can't wait till he recovers and gets to see a toy drive meant for 2,500. Now probably going to be a 7 million by the time he kind of wakes up and gets a chance to look at it. Maybe even 8 at the rate it's going. It almost feels like it's a competition between how high can we get at this point? Who can make the biggest donation?
Yeah, it is actually getting kind of wild because you're at $6,762,200 right now raised, and like you said, the original goal for this, I believe they originally had about $300,000 in this foundation, and so in the matter of, we're talking 72 hours here, $6 million, $6.5 million raised. Absolutely outstanding. And they actually did post an update on here. The actual group, the Jaster athletes who are in charge of actually running this GoFundMe for Damar on behalf of the Hamlin family, they are working with the Hamlin family, the Chasing M's Foundation, and the GoFundMe page, FundMe team, to ensure that the safe delivery of the funds. Damar originally, they go on to say, Damar originally created the Chasing M's Foundation to use as a vehicle to bring lasting impact to his community. So it supports food, toy drives, back to school drives, kids camps, and more. And it's currently, this is the only fund that the Hamlin family has. And now I mentioned that because I also mentioned the jerseys because, as you guys don't know, Fanatics has the deal with all NFL players. Any jersey sold for NFL players goes, a percentage of that purchase goes to that player directly. It's one of the really cool incentive deals in pro sports for all pro sports for jersey sales. So, there's a lot of support being thrown here, and it is fascinating to watch. But I do want to go to a guy you mentioned. You mentioned the Monday Night Football crew. One of the harder ones to listen to, and one of the more telling, and probably the most experienced of anybody that could possibly talk about this type of a topic, was Ryan Clark. When Ryan Clark started talking about this, and I just want to pull one part of his conversation about this out, and he says that at 24 I didn't know that I could die, and that hit me when I was listening to Ryan Clark talk. If anybody doesn't know the story of Ryan Clark has a rare sickle cell immune disease and a rare deformity that when he went to Denver, Colorado, he ended up having a blood clot caused him to be taken to the ER, almost passed away as well. Has never been able to play in Denver again in his career. Actually had to retire because there's one game out of the year that he couldn't play every year. Sad situation to somebody, but somebody who has kind of firsthand experience in this, being on the experience end of this, of something as remotely close as you can get in this situation. And for him to talk about that, and he goes on to say that not only Damar Hamlin, but all the players on the field, everybody watching, all the fans, all the players, everybody in the organizations, everybody's life changed that night. And that impact, that hit me a lot just to think about that. And you're really like thinking about it. It's true. I mean, I don't feel the same since watching that. I don't know a single person who has watched that and can say they feel the same. And I think that's telling. And I think that's the first time that anybody ever watching NFL football can honestly say that they've ever probably felt that. I don't think we've been watching these guys fly around, basically superhumans, and maybe outside of the Ryan Shazier injury, I don't think we've ever really had this moment of, oh no, and I just, and to see the support afterwards, I think it's telling how much this has affected everybody.
Absolutely, as well too. There's quite a few oh no moments of football, but very few can match up to that kind of oh no. Like there's levels to oh no, and that was an oh no that we've never really seen before as well. We've been giving them props and everything like that as well too. I still want to go back to it one more time because I just found a very interesting stat about it as well too. I want, once again, the medical staff. Not all heroes were capes, but all of those people involved are heroes in the fullest extent as well. And you can see the look on the player's face now that we know what they were seeing, because we couldn't really see it lifetime. And now that we know what they were seeing, you see why they were so shaken as well too. But I want to give a shout out to that medical team one more time. They are the absolute truest of true heroes on this. About 70 to 90% of people who go into cardiac arrest in the US, they die before they even get to the hospital because they're surrounded by people who don't know what to do because they don't know CPR. They don't have the equipment. They think, oh, they just faint. They don't know what to do. You have a very, very, very short window to maximize the opportunity to live there. And they did that in front. Like imagine the most stressful situation you've had in your life or something very, very difficult that you have to do on a tight deadline with 65,000 people live watching you and 6, 7, 800, 10, however many million watching you on TV as well too. And the fact that they did what they did, resuscitating him and getting him a fighting chance like that as well too. Well, you can't say enough positive things about that medical staff as well too, and everything that they accomplished. They're giving him a chance to be in that 30 to 10% that does survive after cardiac arrest as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we cannot talk about the medical staff enough. And it's actually, I want to, look, this brings up questions, right? This incident brings up questions. If you're a parent, or if you have nieces and nephews, or if you're a coach, about what would you do in this situation, right? Like, do you feel comfortable letting your kids play? Do you feel comfortable letting your nieces and nephew play? And I want to go back to Dr. Sills, and he goes on to say he says, I let my children, my grandchildren play sports because I think there are tremendous benefits, which is true. And there are absolutely tremendous benefits. But he says, as a parent, he wants to know, is this sports league prepared? Do they themselves have an emergency action plan? And do they have bystanders or people who are trained in emergency procedures? Is there a defibrillator present? And he says, if you can't answer those key questions, then maybe that might be something that you need to get to the league and discuss that. And when I say maybe, he means do it.
It's not really me.
Yeah, no, this is a situation where I mean, I can't, like, I've been very, very hard on the NFL about their support of players when it comes to actual player health. Because despite all the concussion protocols, it was very apparent that was just gloss on the window. This is something that is actually the NFL is taking seriously, and they're, they are showing that they have the processes in for this type of support for a player, and they're providing. And you have the NFL's general medical officer that he is sitting there telling you that don't allow your kid to play in a league that doesn't have these procedures in place. So that tells you everything you need to know about where the NFL takes this and how seriously this is being taken. And that in itself is, if you're playing in a league, please make sure these things are set up in a league for your children. Even if you're adult playing semi-pro, please make sure this is stuff set up for you. I mean, this is just something that I feel like should have been a no-brainer for many years, but now we see the evidence of it, and we see what happens when you are prepared. You just saved a man's life. You saved a 24-year-old man's life, and you allowed him to continue to grow, continue to experience life, and give him a fighting chance at saving to live a normal life. And so, we'll keep this story as it continues to get updated. We'll keep it, but I know we didn't post anything on Twitter. And I just want to say this: we didn't post anything on Twitter because we didn't know what to say when it all happened. Truthfully, we can say all the cliche thoughts and prayers, but truthfully we're so in shock. I don't think I've ever been rendered speechless by a situation, and to see now that he has been given a fighting chance, it's great to see that he is progressing. Hopefully that continues, and as you said, when he gets better, it'll be a great story to hear about when he gets better. But it's going to be getting to that point, and applaud everybody involved, because that is just such a terrifying situation.
100%. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this part with just one last quick little nugget about it as well too. So the Colts safety Rodney Thomas II, he was a high school and childhood friend of Damar Hamlin as well too, both from the Pittsburgh area. Right after that happened, he drove down to Cincinnati, and one quote that really stood out for me as well too is because he said he talked to him. He doesn't know if he could hear him, but he got to say what he had to say. He knows he could hear them, if that makes sense as well. The one thing he says, no doubt in my mind, he's a fighter. No other thought in my mind of him walking out of there under his own power as well too. And I think we all kind of share that sentiment. We're not thinking about if, we're thinking about when, and it's going to be an absolutely heartwarming moment. And I think in a positive way, I think the world, once it gets posted or once it happens, it is going to be a round of applause across the country as well too, a well-deserved one. And when he gets to see all the support that happened during this as well, I think that's going to give him a nice warm feeling inside as well too. But definitely praying for his quick, speedy, and recovery as well too. Hopefully able to live a high quality of life, football or no football, the rest of his life. We're praying for a high quality life throughout as well too. So we're going to continue to monitor this and stay updated on this as well too. We appreciate you all joining us for this topic as well too. We're going to now switch gears now and start talking about some other things around the sports world as well too. If there's any questions or anything you want to talk about with this situation with us, or you want us to touch base on, always reach out to us. or if you have any qualms, trepidations, anything that we talked about, always reach out to us as well too. We're an open book and open to hear all facets of this as well too. But we're now going to move on to the rest of our show now as well too. So that's going to switch us over to our next segment. Our next segment, as you all know, is called the main event. And the main event, of course, brought to you by our good friends over at manscaped.com. Use the code HILOSPORTS at checkout. Get yourself 20% off as well too. If you've heard of Manscaped, you know what they're about as well too. So definitely go check it out. If you find something you like, go ahead and use that code as well too. So Kelsey, we're going to go right into our main event here is now. Well, and there was a lot of other things going on in the sports world as well too, including on Monday, we had ourselves another historic performance a week after talking about a historic performance as well too, as Donovan Mitchell with a casual cool 71 points, just a casual cool every day down at the park, 71, to go along with double-digit assists as well too, nearly a triple-double in an overtime win. And the first word is, oh my goodness. The second word is, wow. The third word is, how. And then the fourth word is, holy moly. Because not only did he put up buckets in abundance, they won the game. And they needed every single one of them because that game went to overtime, and him missing a free throw to get 2 points instead of the one they needed down the stretch as well too, for that, kind of like what we saw Luka do a couple weeks ago as well. What an absolutely insane performance. You rarely see 50. You rarely see 60. 71 I can count on on my two hands at this point as well too, and to get a dub on top of it. We'll talk more about where this ranks too, but what were your first thoughts when you saw what Donovan Mitchell pulled off on Monday?
Well, okay. So first of all, this becomes a little bit more incredible when you consider the fact that this is coming off of just playing the Bulls in Chicago on New Year's Eve, and him giving you 15 points on less than 50% shooting and 0 from 6 from the field. And then on the second, when they play the Bulls again at home in Cleveland, he's just like, you know what? I got you guys. 7 of 15 from 3, lighting it up. I mean, let's go to the 11 assists as well. So it's not like he was just doing it all by himself. 71 points, or as Robin Lopez likes to say, him and Donovan Mitchell combined for 72 combined points. So Robin Lopez obviously getting one. But no, it was fantastic. Like Donovan Mitchell, man, he's such an enigma when it comes to watching somebody score, right? Because he's like I said, he gave you 15 points in the game 2 days ago, and then he's just like, well, that wasn't a great game. I'll do better. Well, he doesn't just do better; he does greater, like greater than, and gets you 71 points. That's just unheard of as far as that goes. And but a fun fact about it, actually, so unheard of, the NBA, of course, hitting him with a random PED test the next
Mandatory.
day. So random PED test after a 71-point game, of course, and playing 50 minutes in that 71-point game. But yeah, no, it is what Donovan Mitchell kind of has always done. He's always had a really big game at some point in time, but never this. Never. I don't think you've ever expected him to score above 45 at the time. Was really kind of where he was
There's
peaking
that
out at.
59 in the bubble was like the one, that was what we thought. If that's your prime outburst, that's a pretty damn good prime outburst is at the end of your career. But he said, nah, we got more to this.
Yeah, and to do it, more importantly, to do it on this Cavaliers team, that kind of tells me a lot about this Cavs team, right? They don't care who does it. They just care that it gets done and gets a dub. Like this Cavs team has allowed him to do that. And it's funny because you talk about how much he was relied on in Utah. Maybe taking some of that pressure off has allowed him to be this guy that can score 70, can score 55, can score 40, can score 38, can score 39. Like he can put up points in bunches if you need him to, but really if you don't need him to, he can be a guy that gives you 15, 10, and 5. Like, so I don't know. I'm fascinated to see this scoring outburst from him, but at the same time, I'm more fascinated to see that the Cavaliers during all of this are just like, yeah, man, you do you. We'll be here. Like, it's a young gun team, and they just who's got the hot hand at the end of the night, and they're going to put up points. I mean, this has been fun to watch for the Cavaliers so far, and Donovan Mitchell obviously getting his chance to shine. And I do think this is very true. I do think he's actually getting his chance to shine now. And despite being the number one in Utah, I think putting him in this Cavs team has allowed some freedom so he can shine for real and not do the limited shining he was doing in Utah. Because I felt like despite everything he was doing in Utah, he was always going to be capped by the fact that he is the most relied upon offensive player there. Like he has to handle the ball. He has to run the pick and rolls. He has to be the guy doing that because there was nobody else to do it at the level he could. Whereas now here in Cleveland, he's like, he could play second fiddle if Garland's playing on the ball. He can play on ball. He can play off ball. It's kind of like when with Steph Curry getting a point guard at the time or getting Klay Thompson healthy. It's like those guys can play off of each other in different ways, and you feel that way with Donovan Mitchell and this young Cavs team. He can play off ball. He can play on ball. Coming off screens, good luck. I mean, this has been a great. Yeah, it's been a great watch. I'm excited to see what he's doing going down the stretch here before the All-Star break.
Let's also not forget Darius Garland has a 50-point game this season as well too. So they have two different guys that have gone north of 50 this year as well, and you got one that's gone north of 70. That is a lot of firepower in that team. And to add on top of what he didn't just score 71. He was responsible for 99 points. The second most since Wilt Chamberlain's 100, even more than Kobe's 81, because that was Kobe strapping the team on his back. Nobody else was touching the ball in that game because they needed every single bucket from him. He was responsible for 99 of what was like 140 points or something, just absolutely ridiculous. Completely unheard of as well. You mentioned, I think, having that little bit of extra offensive weaponry around him. Jared Allen's, I think his offensive game's even a little bit better than Rudy Gobert's, even though they're similar players. I think he gives you more offensively.
He's
Evan
not
Mobley
in the mud.
Exactly. Evan Mobley's, I'm not even going to say sophomore slumping. He's just a young kid still learning, but he's still a threat. Darius Garland's giving you 50 at one point. Kevin Love can still get hot. Isaac Okoro, Caris LeVert. Like, they got a young squad they're dangerous as well, too. I know I had him as the 3 seed going to the Eastern Conference Finals in our predictions, but they might be more dangerous than I thought as well, too. Like, that is a very, very scary team. Donovan Mitchell, I'm not going to say quietly in that MVP conversation because there's no way you are quiet after a game like that, but maybe kicking in that door and entering the room with some of those other guys as well, too. Like, if he's not in the top 3, I don't know. Obviously, Luka's up there. I say you have him, Kevin Durant, Jokic, kind of like that top 3, 4, and even Tatum's not that far off. Like, he's in that conversation. I don't think you can have a conversation without actually putting him in there, without it being an absolutely heinous conversation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you're exactly right. I will also add in, you want to talk about statistics wise, like how he's been doing this season. Looking at 29.3 points a game, 49.2 from the field, which, by the way, 29.3 currently is 3 points higher per game on average than any of his previous other years. The 49% is nearly 5% higher from the field than he has been shooting. And his 41% from 3 is nearly 3% higher than he's been averaging as well. So he has been absolutely just killing it offensively. And it's been, when he came out of Louisville, I don't think anybody ever expected him to be this level of dude. Like, let's be real. Like, you're coming out of Louisville at that time during that Louisville program. You're kind of like, all right, yeah, I mean, he'll make a nice NBA player. But yeah, I don't think anybody expected 70 points, 50-pointer. He had a 40-point game in December. I mean, yeah, I don't think anybody expected this. And man, it's going to be. I really think this team is going to. You mentioned that you had him as a 3 seed. I mean, I think we both had him looking pretty good going into the playoffs, and I think we might have still undersold them. Like, if we're being fair, like, this has been a team. Yeah, I joked before during our gift giving season for them giving a touch of gold. Maybe they are gold. Maybe that's what it took. Like, I don't know, but it's something's cooking right now in Rocket Mortgage, so it's working for them.
The last little nugget I'll have on this is 3 players, and I believe it's the last 20 years, have scored north of 70 points. All 3 are shooting guards. All 3 were selected 13th overall in the first round, with Mitchell, Devin Booker, and Kobe Bryant. So, very duly noted, if you're picking 13th in the draft, grab yourself a 2 guard, because odds are they might get you a whole lot of buckets at some point. Don't overthink it. Just grab that high volume 2 guard, and it will work out. So, but with Donovan Mitchell's high scoring game and his outburst comes the question, though, of who did it better. Because Luka Doncic himself, we had our last episode was properly named Luka Magic after what he pulled off as well, too. So we had a Luka 60, 20, and I think it was 10 triple-double as well with 20 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell 71, 10, and 8 with the assists. I want to let you go first here because this is your MVP, or this is basically the bane of your existence / your MVP and Luka on this podcast, and Spida Mitchell as well, too. Who did it better in your eyes?
I mean, are we talking just single game, or are we talking, because for Luka, I mean, we're talking since December 23rd that he has been on fire. Whereas
we'll go with just the individual. We'll go with the individual game first. We'll just
individual game. 71 and 11 and 8 is tough. But I can't. You can't beat 60, 21 and 10. I'm sorry. Like, I just can't. Like, it's tough because it's against the Bulls versus against the Knicks. So to me, that's obviously plays a part into it.
And the Knicks are a playoff team where the Bulls are the Bulls right now. Sorry, Max.
Yeah, and that's true. And I'm gonna honestly say I'm gonna say Luka. Luka did it better, and this is because I'm also afraid of just going against Luka at this point in time because it's been the bane of my existence for so long. So I'm just gonna keep saying Luka and everything. Hopefully, I'll eventually just he'll leave me alone. No longer quit staring in the camera every time he does something good and staring into my soul. But yeah, no, I think Luka's game was it was impressive in so many levels. And obviously, you talk about games going into overtime and needing to hit the buckets to get them there. Like, he got them to overtime, got them a win there. And then I think you couple that, and I honestly don't think you can leave out the rest of what he did in the last 3 weeks. Like, it's been incredible for Luka the last 3 weeks, what he's been doing. Whereas Donovan Mitchell, I mentioned he had 15 points the game before against the Bulls. The next game he gets you 71. That's amazing. But can you sustain it? Obviously, they're playing the Suns as we're recording this, so we don't know what he's going to end with tonight. But I think at the end of the day, you have to also include that. I'm just going to say Luka for that reason. But it's a coin flip. I mean, really, it is. Like, which one helped you win more? Did the 71 help you? Did the 71 help you win a little bit more? Like, I honestly don't know. And with that said, if Donovan Mitchell ever watches this podcast, Donovan, I don't hate you. I just am scared of Luka a little bit more.
That, and if anyone who's watched the podcast long enough, they understand that right now as well too. I will point out in Luka's favor as well too, he is the first player to have a 60, 20, and 10 game in NBA history. So anytime that you're the first NBA history to do something, that is definitely a positive in
scoring.
Exactly.
Like something relating to scoring, I feel like that's pretty even more impressive.
Exactly. And on top of that, I'll add to that as well, too. That's the first 60-point game in Mavericks history, which is surprising to hear. The previous high was Dirk Nowitzki at 53. Surprised me as well, too, because I could have swore Dirk Nowitzki one day got like a random 60 piece, but turns out Dirk Nowitzki's career high was 53. So even more check marks in the Luka column on that one. What I love about both of these ones, too, is they both were pretty efficient from the field when they did it as well, too.
Yeah.
Luka, he was 21 of 31 from the field and 16 of 22 from the free throw line. Donovan Mitchell was 22 of 34 shooting and 20 of 25 from the free throw line. Like, they were both absolutely incredible. I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to lean slightly towards Luka in a 51 to 41% sort of thing, simply because it had the never been done before in history sort of factor to it. They both did it without their number 2 options on top of that, too. If I'm not mistaken, I think Wood was injured in that game for the Mavericks, and I believe Garland was injured in that game for the Cavs too. So what they both did was absolutely incredible. Where they put the team on their backs. I think Donovan Mitchell's was more explosive, a little more, I don't want to say, I'll say flashy, but not in a negative way. I think it just had it was a little more graceful, a little more elegant, a little more explosive. Luka's he has mastered the old man game and made it cool in a way, if that makes sense. Like that. It's 51, 41, 49%. Like, if you told me Donovan was better, I'd be like, you're right. Like, I would not argue very deep. Yeah. I'll give Luka the slight nod just because it has that never been done before in history, not next to it as well.
I mean, look, to score 71 points, you're in the air with 10 other players historically, I believe.
I think it's it's a short list.
To score over 70 points, I believe it is 10 players in NBA history. I mean, you're in the likes of Kobe, up there the likes with Wilt. So yeah, there's some impressive. Like, it's not taking anything away to say that, like, oh no, like, Luka's was better, and it really is just because it's the first ever. At the end of the day, like, that's really why that's a little bit better.
You know what? I changed my mind already. I'm gonna give it to Donovan Mitchell 51-49. I'm flipping on its head because I'm gonna factor in the assists where he accounted for 99 points. He alone almost pulled off the Wilt 100 points. So I'm going to flip-flop because, well, if we did this podcast for another 30 minutes, I'd flip-flop 4 more times. But I'm going to say Spider did it better, 51% to 49. If anyone's listening that wants to comment below, tell me why I'm right or why I'm wrong, or why Kelsey's right or why he's wrong. Because I'm going to flip-flop back and forth on these all the time as well, too. But all
right, here we go. We have the list of players that score over 70. All right, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, twice. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Okay, David Thompson.
Twice.
David Robinson.
Oh, David Robinson twice.
No, David Thompson and David Robinson.
I know what I'm saying. Didn't David Robinson do it twice too?
No, only 71. Kobe, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell. That is the list.
It's a pretty short list.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wilt did it a bunch of times, which makes 6. And then Elgin Baylor is 7. Yeah, 7 players. 6 of which were Wilt.
Wait, that just shows how broke.
13 total times has it happened. 6 of which were Wilt. 7 were other guys. And actually, really ironically, in that 4 out of the 7 actual players that do it are modern era guys.
It's absolutely great.
Post 90s. So, yeah.
I will say we did get a comment too. We did get a comment on our argument as well too, but it will not settle debate as RJ actually says we are both right on this one. So we are still stuck. We are still right in the middle as we try and figure out what. I think we're going to both just stick with that. We're both just going to be right at this point. Either way, I will take both of them. If I'm building a team and I get either one, here's my soul. You may have it as well too. So we'd sign that away. But before we forget, we don't want to brush this one under the rug. They're not the only two. They're not the only 2 players that went berserk in the last 14 days as well too. We might have had the quietest double nickel 50 piece I've ever seen. Is Giannis with a very quiet, very brushed under the rug 55-10, and I think it was 7 assists against the Washington Wizards last night as well too. Which I had the bet queued up, but I took it off because there wasn't enough games going on yesterday. I'm mad I didn't keep the over on his 30 points because I would have got that cleared pretty comfortably. But Giannis continues his domination in the last 7 games. He's averaging 41 points and like 12 rebounds. He's been on an absolute tear as well too. And even when I talked about the MVP earlier, I forgot to mention his name. That he said it in the last game. He wants his scoring to almost be boring. Like when he does that, he wants to be boring because he does it so well. And yes, comparison is the thief of joy. So we are done comparing now. They are all awesome as well too. That is a fair way to put it. So I want to ask you two, Giannis quietly dominating. Does this kind of cue him in as the best player in the game? And if that is the case, do you think he has a shot at this MVP, or is it almost Giannis fatigue because he has done it so well for so long? And even when he takes it up a notch like this, you almost shrug your shoulders like, oh, another 50 piece.
So I said this last year about Giannis, where it's freakish to me that he is at 27 at the time. Now he's 28 and he's getting better every year. Like not to the level of like just a normal player going through their peak. This dude is getting astronomically better every year. You mentioned his 55, which, by the way, his career high 55, 20 from 33 from the field. And if you know anything about Giannis, you know, being efficient is not necessarily his game ever.
Not
he is
high
kind of
volume.
he is a kind of one of the situations where he just kind of throws the ball up a lot of times. Like when he gets close to the basket, for example, a 45-point game against the Bulls earlier this season, 17 of 39, 27-point game, 9 of 22. 17 of 27, 12 of 17. Like those are some of his, obviously 12 of 17 game, great game against the Pelicans. But the 20 of 33 was, I mean, wow. And to do it in 37 minutes. So in a regulation game. Unlike the other 2 we just mentioned did it during overtimes. But I tell you, comparison to Thief of Joy, I don't want to compare, but I will say that it is terrifying to me that Giannis keeps getting better and better and better. And now we're not talking about him. And I was worried about this in the offseason where it's just like, we talked about some of the best players. Like Luka is making that stride to be the best player, but he's doing it in your face. Whereas Giannis right now is quietly cooking behind the scenes, 40 pieces left and right. Like he has 640 pieces in the last month. And you're just like, oh, 640 plus, I should say. And you're just like, oh, it's that type of a time for Giannis right now. And it's to the point where he's jogging off instead of running the clock off. He's jogging to the sideline, setting the ball on the sideline so his brother can come in the game. We all know when Thanasis Antetokounmpo comes in, the game is over. So that's the point where Giannis is getting, where he's just like, you know what? I don't need to be on the court anymore, coach. I'm bringing my brother in for me. But yeah, I think it's sad that he's not being talked about enough. But it's hard because, like, you talk about Donovan Mitchell, you talk about Luka right now as the 2 front runners are here, and John Morant. Like, all these guys are all very flashy with the way they play on a daily basis. Where Giannis is just kind of a long freak, when it comes down to it. Like, it's not as fascinating to continue watching a really long guy who's taller and faster and bigger than everybody dunk on everybody. Like, most people don't find that fascinating after 4 seasons of watching him do it. They're going to be like, oh, wow, this point guard is dunking on absolutely everything with the ferocity of 1,000 Suns. Or this random white guy is playing old man ball in the NBA.
60 doing it.
Yeah, and he's schooling everybody. Or then, you have Donovan Mitchell. He just put up 71 points. Like, what? And then you just have Giannis just
casual dominance.
Yeah, like playing in the paint, just putting the ball up. It's kind of just kind of maybe going to be Giannis fatigue. I don't know, but it'll be sad if it is. But Giannis is definitely making a case for himself. I think maybe right now he might be my front runner, barely ahead of Luka, and I'd say that just because of the consistency of him.
Luka's not going to like that. He's going to be staring into the camera next time he plays. Now is the way to go.
I have to get something to Luka's got to give me something here. He can't like, and this is going to be the problem with this Luka and Giannis thing. Is you're right if you do, and you're right and you're wrong if you don't, and you're wrong if you do, and you're wrong if you don't. Like, no matter what you pick here, you're going to be wrong or you're going to be right, just depending on which perspective people are looking at it from. Like, I can say yes about Luka, I can say yes about Giannis, and I'd be right in both situations. Any other year.
What I will add on to his case as well too. One thing that's been crazy about Giannis is he's done it pretty much this entire season without his co-pilot and Chris Middleton as well too. And they're still like a game or two out of first place in the East. And we've had 6 games of Chris Middleton. Even in those 6 games, he did not look like Chris Middleton. He has not quite bounced back yet. So he's kept them afloat. Drew Holiday we obviously like Drew Holiday a lot, but this is not his best season. He's kind of doing it single-handedly almost is what makes it really impressive. And on top of it, he's doing all this domination while arguably being the best defensive player in the game too as well. Still. And not just in the paint or just on ball, both. If Kawhi was healthy, then maybe you could put him in the conversation for that best defensive player, but I saw a joke that I'm going to steal from somebody else as well too. Kawhi's kind of like a government check. He only plays twice a month. So at this point, I don't know if you could quite put him in that conversation. I can't remember who I saw that from on Twitter. I'm sorry, I stole it from you. Let me know and I will give you your trademark. But point is, I think you could make that strong case. Giannis is the best defensive player in the game, as well as maybe one of the top offensive players as well too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't get over the government check commentary. I
don't know who thought of that one. I don't know where I saw it. If you happen to be watching one of those like handful of people, please let me know because I thought it was hilarious.
That's a good one. No, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah. I honestly, I'm lost now. You got me all.
You know what? I'm going to guide us into our next segment while you recover as well too. We talked about quiet domination. Well, Giannis isn't the only quiet one. Is quietly that team out of Brooklyn might be the hottest team in the league, and we talked about the Cavaliers being dangerous. The Nets kind of suddenly turned into an absolute mess, into an absolute juggernaut, winning, was it 14 out of the last 15, something ridiculous. Kevin Durant. 12 straight, even better. Like Kevin Durant during that time, his lowest field goal percentage is like 47% during that. Kyrie's averaging north of 20. I don't want to say they look unbeatable because that's obviously a stretch, but it's the best they've looked since Kyrie and Kevin joined, even better than when they had James Harden for those 12 games they all played together. This probably looks like the best team we've seen on paper in a very, very long time, the way they've been rolling these last 12 games. Do you think this was kind of your preseason pick too for Kevin Durant to be that MVP as well too, and to go on the Nets to go on this run? Do you think this is kind of the start of that as well too, or do you think it might be a blip and it might come back down to earth a little bit?
I mean, I don't know if you can say 18 out of 20 is the start of anything. I feel like this is a continuation at this point in time of what they started around Thanksgiving, because that's what it all kind of turned around. That's where they now it's been 18 out of 20 that they've rattled off, and then like I said, 12 straight. I think whatever was going on in the first couple weeks, I don't know what that was with the Nets, but that was definitely the ugliest basketball I think I've ever seen. And now, like you said, this might be some of the best basketball I think we've seen them play since these two have really been able to be on the court together. So I think this might be the turning point for the Nets that they needed. But man, for a while there, it was not looking good. I thought for sure this was going to be a team that is just astronomical failure this year. Like we always have that one that's, for example, in the NFL, you have the Denver Broncos. But this is like this year, like I thought it was going to be the Brooklyn Nets that was going to be the team in basketball that's going to let me down. And yeah, so far, I mean, that's not even happening. And I don't know what to say. you talk about keeping me speechless from things like this is a turnaround that is just it's player led. I mean, this is just showing you the heart of Kevin Durant, how much he really wants to win, and how much hearing those chirps in the background, and maybe even Kyrie too, for that matter. I just don't know how much Kyrie gets involved with the out of court talk, because I mean he does not care. Like literally, Kyrie does not care what you think about him anymore. Whereas KD still has a little bit of that not nice KD in him, where he does care so much that he makes a commercial about it because of like that's how much he cares. So he still hears the chirps and he still has his burner accounts. So it just goes to show you how much like his passion can rub off on teammates and I can get them going. And look, I'm not saying anything against Kyrie, but I think at this point in time, it's acceptable to say Kyrie is a second fiddle and plays well as a second fiddle to KD. And I think that's okay to say now. I don't think I'm going to hurt anybody's feelings saying that anymore. But I think they've done well to do that, and I think Jacques Vaughn has finally really figured out how to get this team rolling. And it's good to see the Nets. Good to see for Jacques Vaughn too, because talk about a good dude, good former basketball player, just a good dude all around. Like you wish the best for him. So we'll have to see if the Nets can continue this, but I think 18 out of 20 is pretty telling that they figured it out at this point in time, especially since you're running through a stretch of all Eastern teams at that point in time. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe they were just going through the West and that was just a struggle. And then, now they're going through the East and it's just like, oh, thank goodness it's breathable. I don't know what the case may be, but yeah, 18 out of 20 tells me they figured something out and it's going well. So we'll see at the All-Star break if they can continue it, but all signs point to yes.
What I will add on to that too is Kevin Durant, who the last few years has had a little bit of injury, the injury bug kind of getting him a little bit. Out of 37 games, he's played 36 of them. So this year he has been as healthy as he's been in a very long time, averaging just under 30 points a game as well too, to go along with 7 boards and more than 5 assists. And Ben Simmons as well too. We haven't talked about him a whole lot recently, but he's subtly kind of found his role as that third option Swiss Army knife utility piece kind of as well too. I mean, he's only giving you about 8 points a game, but he's giving you just under 7 rebounds and about 6 assists as well too, plus a steal and a half, and just the on-ball defense and versatility he provides you as well too. When he's not asked to be your leading scorer or your LeBron, Giannis type player, he's your third fill, a former multi-time All-Star who is called the Young Prince, saying he's the next LeBron James, and now he's the third guy on the team, while Kyrie's giving you 26 and Kevin's giving you 30.
Yeah,
the Bucks, the Celtics, and in my opinion, the Cavaliers is going to be a very, very fun quartet going down the stretch. While there's still the Philadelphia 76ers in that Eastern conversation as well too, and a few other teams as well. But when I look at those four, I look at that 4 horseman race down the stretch is going to be very, very fun to watch in the East, I think as well too. And I look forward to seeing some of those battles.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned injury, right? Kyrie, you talk about injury bug bitten. Playing 27 games so far, so two away from all the games he played last season. So, yeah, definitely helps when you can stay healthy and play.
Exactly, as well, too. And on top of that, the other stuff that's kind of kept him away, too, not necessarily just injuries this year, is the other stuff that had missed some games as well. So he's been even healthier than that says on top of it. So definitely look out for the Nets, look out for the Cavs, and don't forget about Giannis. I think that'll summarize the NBA so far for us. And looking at the West, good luck, everybody, because that is going to be a battle royale as well, too. But
even the Kings are in the race for the West, and that just tells you everything you need to know about the West.
I actually saw somebody got yelled at on Twitter for being called a Kings bandwagoner. She literally got, because she wore a Kings sweatshirt. Somebody tried to say she's a Kings bandwagoner. Have you ever heard that in your life? Someone being accused of being a Kings bandwagoner?
I had the double 2002. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't heard that since Peja Stojakovic and Vlade Divac were on the court with a full head of hair, Mike Bibby.
And that was pre-jacked Mike Bibby. That was normal size Mike Bibby.
That was normal Mike Bibby. That was former Vancouver Saviors Mike Bibby. Who, didn't say Vancouver.
It's that's absolutely. I had the double take when I saw. I was like, I can't believe this. And even back in 2002, it wasn't necessarily a Kings bandwagon. It was a we hate the Lakers bandwagon, and this is the team that seems like they might be.
We hate the Lakers and we hate the Jazz. That's what the Kings bandwagon was.
I figured you'd get a kick out of it, but that's going to do it for our main event now as well, too. The Kings are legit now, it feels like. We'll see how long it stands for as well. By the way, before we get out of here, I got to mention one more thing about your Kings. That big trade last year featuring Tyrese Halliburton, Don Sabonis as well, too. All of the players involved in that trade, Buddy Hield, kind of in position to be all-star caliber players right now as well too. All of them kind of are in that voting mix for it as well too. So not gonna say a trade that everybody won like Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson, but interesting how that works out too. And
it's actually surprisingly close.
And the Pacers with Halliburton and their young rookie Mathurin, I believe it is as well too. I'm probably butchering his name. They're looking pretty dangerous, but we won't get too deep into those weeds as well too. We just had to mention Kelsey's Kings a little bit because it's been a long 3 years on this podcast talking about the Kings. It's finally time to finally relish it and enjoy it a little bit.
It's been a long 20 years not talking about.
It's been a long career.
Yeah, let's be honest.
That's fair. Don't worry. When they're the Seattle Supersonics, then you'll be able to like them a little bit differently. They won't let you down. But
fun fact about that: when they were rumored to be bought out by Seattle, and I guess I'm postponing this a little bit longer. When they were rumored to be bought out by the group from Seattle, and they were going to get moved to Seattle, I went and bought Supersonics gear. I found it and I bought it. I was 100% on board with becoming a Sonics fan. And then they stayed the Kings, and I was like, thank God. But now I had all this Sonics gear that I just had nothing to do with. And so, fun fact: maybe wait until the ink dries before going and splurging on purchases in the future.
I still have a very, very old Supersonics t-shirt that has like Gary Payton and Sean Kemp on it. So I'm set if they ever do it. But anyway, we can go off on our wild tangents here as well, too. We're going to go and jump right into Crunch Time now. Crunch Time, of course, brought to you by our friends over at outlier.com or outlier.bet, excuse me. Use code outlier.bet /highlowsports. Go ahead and give yourself a 7-day free trial. Bet smarter, not harder. Give yourself a chance to win some money by looking at trends, odds, betting odds, everything you need to know to make a smart bet across multiple sports books as well, too. Can't say, since the sports betting came legal in Ohio all of 100 hours ago, we've used it to our benefit so far and not been able to pull as much money as we want because we're greedy. But at the same time, it's definitely been beneficial for us as well, too. But Crunch Time, we normally like to spend a little bit of time here, and we got a pretty busy NFL weekend coming up. A couple of games that don't mean a whole lot, and a couple that mean a whole lot of everything for a couple of franchises. And for the first one we're going to be looking at, we're going to start with the one that might not necessarily matter, but got the Sunday night matinee as well, too, is we got the Lions taking on the Packers. And the Lions could be eliminated by the time this game gets played, depending on how the rest of it goes. Or they could be fighting for their playoff lives under the Fighting Dan Campbells. We'll go to you quickly. Lions, Packers, who do you think? Do you think either one of these, do you think the Lions walk away with that 7th seed, or do the Packers sneak their way back into the playoffs?
Wouldn't it be the most Packers and Aaron Rodgers-esque thing to sneak his way back in the playoffs despite everything this season? Literally the definition of RELAX ending in this way. But yeah, no, give me the Lions. Give me head coach Dan Campbell and squad. Jamal Williams will be able to do his Super Saiyan celebration in the end zone, is all I'm going to say.
He will definitely do that, but I'm going to take the Packers as well, too, because this gives him an entire hour on the Pat McAfee show to back. I told you guys we weren't mathematically eliminated. Here we go. And the Jordan Love, is he good or is he not good, is delayed by yet another year. So we'll continue to wonder. It'll be the great what if. But the other game that we have right now is we have the Jaguars taking on the Titans. Winner takes all in the AFC South. Jaguars kind of coming out of nowhere as well, too, these last few weeks, surprising everybody. The Titans doing the exact opposite and free-falling at a 90-degree angle. Do you think they stopped the bleeding led by King Henry and now Joshua Dobbs, too, the rocket scientist? Or do we see the prince that was promised, Trevor Lawrence, to lead his team to the playoffs after a miserable rookie year?
I don't think you necessarily need a rocket scientist to beat the Jaguars. I think right now what you need is a chemical engineer to come up with some kind of combination to stop the leakage in your secondary. That sounds like a great idea. Obviously, Kevin Byard doesn't care. He's still going to get his numbers. But everybody else on that defense is struggle busing, to say the least, for the Titans. And the offense looks like you don't have a receiver over 700 yards receiving. That tells me everything you need to know about that team. So, yeah, give me the Jaguars, the prince that is promised, Sunshine himself.
And that's going to set up an awfully fun first-round matchup between possibly the Jaguars and the Chargers in Jacksonville as well, too, if it goes that way. I want to say the Titans because it feels like they can't possibly plummet this bad, and Mike Vrabel's a heck of a coach. But at some point, these injuries actually have to matter. Like, they're the most injured team last year and ended up the number 1 seed. They're the most injured team this year. There's no way you get to go to the playoffs with this many injuries. It's just not fair. So unless Derrick Henry's got 203 in his back pocket and maybe a receiving touchdown to go with it, I think the Jaguars are going to squeak by this one as well, too. I think they just have the ability to stay homeostasis on offense, to stay ahead of the chains. As weird as it is, like Trevor Lawrence has been really, really good, but everything's been really easy for him with the way that they've been able to just stay ahead of the chains, and they allow him to do what he does best. So give me the Jaguars as well.
I'll say, don't forget tackling machine Foye Aluakon.
Second year in a row leading the league in tackles so far as well, too. And you have to imagine he's going to keep that going. But that'll do it for us here on the High Low Sports Podcast. Hey, we appreciate y'all joining in and hanging out with us for some good, some bad, some heartwarming, and a whole lot of everything in between. We appreciate you guys joining us, and we will see you all again next week.